55. David Murdo-MacLeod, UK Independence Party, UKIP, 208. Liam McKechnie, Scottish Family Party, 197. Callum McNally, Scottish Labour Party, 4,839. Carolyn Scrimger, Scottish Green Party, 916. Joe Swinson, Scottish Liberal Democrats, 19,523.
Hear the cheers there. That's because Joe Swinson, we were talking about a so-called decapitation strategy, an attempt
Amy Callaghan
to remove Boris Johnson. Well, in terms of leaders who've gone, that's the second one. Nigel Dalton, Westminster leader of the DUP, has gone, and the SNP, as you can see there, have taken East Dunbartonshire. Joe Swinson will no longer be an MP. Well, so many questions being asked, even during the campaign, about the nature of the Lib Dem campaign. Well, we'll talk about that an awful lot more later, but there we are. Joe Swinson is out of Parliament. Another gain for the SNP. Well, we knew from the exit poll it was going to be a good night for the SNP. They had to win the seats somewhere, and they won one of them, gained one of them from East Dunbartonshire. The SNP triumphant there. Let's listen to the winning candidate, and then one presumes from a rather upset-looking there, yes, a rather upset-looking Joe Swinson. Here's the winner.
And to all those working the count tonight, and to polling stations all across East Dunbartonshire today, thank you so much for your patience and your commitment. This is an absolute privilege. Thank you to the good people of East Dunbartonshire for putting your trust in me as your new MP. I'll work tirelessly to represent you all. This sends a clear message to Boris Johnson that the people of East Dunbartonshire reject austerity, we reject poverty, and we reject all of the damage that the Tories and the Liberal Democrats have imposed on the people of Scotland. On a personal note, from me, what I say to Boris Johnson is hands off our NHS. But emphatically, this is a clear message that the people of East Dunbartonshire want to choose our own future. Not the future of Tories the Tories have been imposing on us. This could not be a stronger mandate for us to do so. So Boris Johnson, you listen loud and you listen clear. Scotland has had enough of your policies being imposed on us. We deserve better, and East Dunbartonshire has said that by electing me as their MP. I have so many people to thank, from my partner Sean, who's been there for every single high and every single low, to my parents who've always taught me to believe in myself, from my brothers, my boss and my close friend Rona Mackay MSP, my extended family and friends, my election agent Gordon and my campaign manager Dennis, and to every single activist who chapped one door or 10 doors for me, who delivered one leaflet or 1,000 leaflets for our campaign. Thank you all. Because of our hard work and dedication and commitment to this campaign, we're one step closer to our independence due to your hard work. To any young woman out there watching this, you've got two women here with very different ideological views, and myself and Joe Swinson. But what you can take and what we show you together is that young women can smash boundaries, they can smash barriers, so don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't or that you're not good enough. Believe in yourself the way that me and Joe have, and know that there is no limit to what you can achieve. And finally, just to finish off, there's one person that I really wish was here tonight to share this with me. I lost a very close friend during this campaign who believed that I could be the MP for East Dunbartonshire long before I thought I could. So John, this one's for you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank the returning officer and all of the staff that have been involved in this election campaign, the emergency services, and all of my fellow candidates, and congratulate Amy wholeheartedly. It is an amazing job. I'm sure you will love doing it, and I wish you well. And what you said about young women and smashing boundaries, I wholeheartedly agree. I would also like to thank my agent, Liberal Democrat campaigners and activists who have made this campaign special with the additional challenge of doing it as leader of the Liberal Democrats too. I particularly would like to thank my mum, my sister Nicola, my husband Duncan, and our two darling boys, Andrew and Gabriel. And I would like to thank the people of East Dunbartonshire for putting your faith in me for 12.5 years to represent this wonderful place. I have enjoyed serving our communities. I've enjoyed having the opportunity to make a difference, whether it's here on local issues, whether it's supporting people working on the national minimum wage by introducing penalties for rogue employers, whether it's women in our economy by introducing gender pay gap reporting. Tonight, we have seen that it is likely that Boris Johnson is on course to get a majority. And it is clearly a good night for the SNP. Some will be celebrating the wave of nationalism that is sweeping on both sides of the border. And I do congratulate all those who are newly elected. These are very significant results for the future of our country, and I will be making further remarks later today. But let me say now, for millions of people in our country, these results will bring dread and dismay, and people are looking for hope. I still believe that we as a country can be warm and generous, inclusive and open, and that by working together with our nearest neighbours, we can achieve so much more. Liberal Democrats will continue to stand up for these values that guide our liberal movement: openness, fairness, inclusivity. We will stand up for hope.
Jo Swinson there, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, no longer an MP though, just narrowly lost her seat there in East Dunbartonshire to the SNP, a majority of 149 for Amy Callaghan of the Scottish National Party. So not too good night for the Liberal Democrats, just got an awful lot worse. Personally for Jo Swinson, she's not returning to Parliament. Many questions then about her leadership, but a very big win then, very big scalp for the Scottish National Party, and predicted to do well. Well, they're already doing very well in Scotland. They're obviously up 9 seats so far. They've taken 4 from the Labour Party. They're just hearing, though, for Jo Swinson, the Lib Dems have taken St Albans. But I want to go now to the leader of the Scottish National Party, Nicola Sturgeon, and this was her reaction to that result in East Dunbartonshire, her candidate getting home. Well, she joins me now live. Nicola Sturgeon, I take it you were a tad pleased about that result. Didn't look very magnanimous, though, did it, your reaction?
Yeah. Look, I'm delighted for Amy Callaghan. She's one of the bright young stars of this election, and I predict great things ahead for her. But can I say, notwithstanding that, understandably excited reaction, commiserations to Jo Swinson. I understand more than most the pressures and the challenges of leadership, and to lose her seat tonight when she's led her party through this campaign will be a bitter blow for her. So on a personal level, I really do feel for her. Well, but of course, I can't help but be delighted by the performance of my party.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take that as celebration for the party. And as I said, there's the prediction and there's the reality. What, you're up 9 seats so far already, plenty to declare. If you get above 50, which it looks like, and some, what does that mean then for your campaign for another independence referendum?
Well, if we win the election, and it looks as if we're on course to win the election and win it well, you know, the exit poll may slightly overstate where we end up, but we're going to win this election, and we put forward a very clear proposition, and people in Scotland will have made very clear that they didn't want Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, that they don't want Brexit, and they want Scotland's future to be in Scotland's hands. And there is a mandate now to offer the people of Scotland a choice over our own future. That mandate already existed, and it has been reinforced. I absolutely readily accept that not everybody who voted SNP yesterday will support independence necessarily, but there is a clear desire and endorsement for the notion that Scotland should not be landed with a Boris Johnson government and ripped out of Europe against our will. We should have a choice over our own future, and that mandate has to be respected.
Okay. And just while you've been talking to us, you may not have noticed or been told, here your party's taken air from the Conservatives as well. Maybe time for another little jig, perhaps not while you're on air.
I'll keep myself a bit calmer this time, thank you.
But I mean, in a sense, it's not that bad. You say, well, OK, you know, Boris Johnson is pretty clearly going to get back into Downing Street with a big majority. Brexit, in terms of the formal exit from the European Union, is going to take place. But in a way, if Scotland wants to remain, doesn't that then help you in your campaign for an independence referendum?
Well, I'm bitterly disappointed at the result UK-wide. I think Tory governments are bad for the UK. I know that they're bad for Scotland, and I really don't want the UK to leave the European Union. But I've got to accept that England appears to have voted in a particular way. They appear to have voted for a Conservative government and appear to have voted to endorse the UK leaving the European Union. So Boris Johnson may have a mandate to take England out of the European Union. He emphatically does not have a mandate to take Scotland out of the European Union. Scotland must have a choice over our own future, because it can't be any clearer than it has been made in this election today that Scotland doesn't want a 5-year Boris Johnson government and doesn't want to lose our status as a European nation. This is about choice. It's about saying very clearly it's not for Boris Johnson to decide Scotland's future, it's for the people of Scotland to decide it.
Well, so many questions flow from that. I might only have time to put one of them to you. As we're just watching, by the way, Boris Johnson's car taking him back into central London. We don't know if he's going to Downing Street or to Conservative Party headquarters to congratulate the staff there. But Nicola Sturgeon, how does it happen, given we're looking at Boris Johnson's car anyway, not the man himself, but we know he's not changing his view. He's not going to grant he's not going to grant you another referendum.
I think, look, it looks as if, and we don't have all the results in Scotland yet, but it looks as if the position that I've put forward of offering people in Scotland a choice has yet again been endorsed by the people of Scotland in this election. So that question really has to be for Boris Johnson. He has no right to stand in the way of that choice. He's every right to oppose Scottish independence, and I think he has to think carefully. I think the Scottish Conservatives, who've suffered significant defeats tonight, have to think very carefully. This is about respecting mandates and respecting choice. Scotland cannot be kept in the Westminster system against its will. It can only be kept in that if it chooses that. And that is the choice that must be given. And I think the Tories really have to think long and hard about the position, because it is not a sustainable one in the long term, and probably not in the short term either.
And judging by the cheers behind you, you might have won another one. But I do have time for the second question. May I put this to you? And this is on the issue of rejoining the European Union. Scotland will obviously still be part of the UK that leaves, and you know that's a thorny issue. You had cast iron reassurances, if you get that far, if you get independence, that the EU will let you back in, and indeed without joining the euro.
Look, no country can be forced into the euro, and I have no doubt at all that if Scotland chooses to be independent, we'll be welcomed with open arms in the European Union. Of course, we will have to go through the process if we are out of that. But you know, the European Union is an organisation that has existed to enlarge itself. It was always fanciful in 2014 to say that we wouldn't be allowed to be in the European Union, and of course back then we were told that rejecting independence was a way to protect our European membership. So these scare stories about Scotland not being allowed into the European Union will simply not wash again.
OK, I just see it's because you've taken the cheering, because SNP have taken Glasgow North East. Another one, another Labour one down. It is quite astonishing, isn't it, over the course of, 5 years or so? You've wiped Labour out.
Well, you know, Labour, I'm afraid, is responsible for its own position in Scotland. Labour has lost touch with people in Scotland. It's found itself floundering on the issue of independence, on the issue of Brexit, and it's got some very hard thinking to do. I mean, Scottish Labour is now in existential crisis in Scotland, but that, thankfully, is not for me to worry about in the immediate future.
Indeed.
And, you know, I'll continue to do what I can as First Minister to make sure Scotland is not in the position of having to put up with a Tory government we don't vote for and a Brexit that we don't want.
OK, we've got a question here coming into you from John Burko, our guest for the evening, Nicola Sturgeon.
No, actually, it wasn't a question from me to Nicola. I just wanted to say that while acknowledging the enormous triumph of the SNP in East Dunbartonshire, which deserves to be acknowledged, I did think that Jo Swinson made an extremely gracious concession speech on which she should be congratulated. That's a very difficult situation, and I think she handled it to her enduring credit.
I conceded that. I mean, obviously I'm delighted for the SNP candidate there, but I think it's a very difficult situation for Jo Swinson. I do personally, as a leader of a party, feel for her right now, and you know, it's difficult for women in politics, perhaps even more so than male leaders. So I've got a great deal of sympathy, and I agree that I think the speech she made there was incredibly gracious.
And just lastly, on the nature of the progress you're making there, you're interpreting it quite clearly as an endorsement of another independence referendum, but you've also mentioned, of course, the issue of Brexit. Scotland doesn't want to leave. Isn't partially your vote about that? It's not entirely an endorsement of independence.
Well, of course it was an emphatic rejection of Brexit, but, you know, given how England has voted, it looks as if Brexit is going to happen, and therefore that makes it all the more important that Scotland has a choice about its future, because we've demonstrated yet again we don't want Brexit and we don't want to be outside the European Union. I will absolutely readily concede that not everybody who voted SNP yesterday will necessarily vote for independence in a referendum, but people must have that choice, and that's the fundamental issue of principle that was very much to the fore in this election and will be to the fore in the days and weeks to come.
Nicola Sturgeon, great talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. The
Thank you.
leader, the triumphant leader of the Scottish National Party.